My name is Leah Valentine, and I'm so excited to be here again with my great friend, Stephanie Edwards, author of the Isle of Palm series. And we're here to talk about her second book in the series, Return to Palm Court. And we're so excited to be together to celebrate this launch with all of you today. So for those of you who have not had a chance to dive into this story yet, let me just share a quick synopsis of Stephanie's brand new romantic suspense novel, the second in this really awesome series. Brittany Nelson returns to the South Carolina Lowcountry to help her sister Blake run the family bed and breakfast and care for her 3-year-old niece. Soon after, strange occurrences begin taking place. Brittany can't shake the feeling that the ghosts of her family's past haven't been laid to rest after all. As she works to unravel how this is possible, she finds herself in the center of unfathomable events. But if the Nelson sisters know anything, life at Isle of Palms isn't always a day at the beach. I love that so much. So, as we said last time with your first book launch, because there are a lot of twists and turns and new characters here, we don't want to give away any spoilers, but you will continue to get plenty of insight into the inspiration behind this story and the characters and the new characters that we're meeting at the Return to Palm Court novel. So we're also going to get to hear a lot about Stephanie's amazing author journey, what she's done in the past year between book 1 and getting ready for book 2. And also, we have giveaways. I mean, who doesn't love a chance to win some great prizes? So we're very excited about that. So we've got book talk, we've got giveaways and prizes. So what else could we ask for? So we're really excited to have you here. Thank you all again for joining us. And without further ado, I am very thrilled to introduce the incredible Stephanie Edwards, author of Return to Palm Court.
Thanks so much, Leah, and thank you to everyone who's watching. We're really excited to have you here tonight for my book launch, and I can't believe that we're already together again. Time has flown since the first book launch, so it's been really exciting. I've learned a lot. I've met a lot of great people through this process, and I'm just really excited to keep growing and keep meeting new people. And with that, I will read a little bit from Return to Palm Court just to give you a little bit of flavor of what the book is all about. So this is from the perspective of Brittany. If you read the first book, The Haunting on Palm Court, you'll recognize the name Nelson. Brittany is Blake's youngest sister actually. And so she's back in South Carolina at the family bed and breakfast. And right now, in the scene that I'm reading, she is with Macy, who is Blake's 3-year-old daughter. So just setting the scene for you, they're in the kitchen and they're making cookies together. The gooey cookie dough stuck to the spoon as Brittany dropped heaping spoonfuls inches apart onto a cookie sheet. Brittany put the cookies into the oven, and Macy licked her lips. How long will it take for the cookies to cook? Brittany couldn't help laughing. This kid had inherited the Nelson family's sweet tooth. Probably 10 minutes or so. Why don't you go play with Willow in the garden while we wait? Macy nodded and opened the door for Willow, who frolicked into the yard chasing a butterfly. Watching them from the screened-in porch, Brittany remembered playing in the garden with her sisters when they were younger. Too bad Macy doesn't have any kids her age to play with here. Maybe Blake and Clint would have another child soon to give Macy a sibling to grow up with. Or they could enroll her in a playgroup or preschool program. Brittany realized part of the reason they hadn't been in a rush to do either, from their perspective, Macy hadn't been the easiest child to raise. If she could send Parker away before Blake was any the wiser, it would give them a chance to see how good their spunky daughter was. Goosebumps prickled up Brittany's arms when she sensed someone was watching her. She turned around to see Nancy standing behind her, smiling. Brittany jumped. Ah, Nancy, you scared me to death. So sorry, hun. I wanted to help you get started with trying to get rid of our ahem problem. A reminder popped up on her phone. The cookies. Hang on, I'll be right back. She went back into the house, grabbed a pot holder, and retrieved the cookie sheet from the oven. In the condensation on the oven's glass section, someone had smeared the words, careful, and I won't repeat that word. The hairs on Brittany's arm stood on end. She couldn't see anyone in her peripheral vision, but she didn't need to guess who had made the side comment. She drew a deep breath and said a silent prayer before turning around.
Ooh. Yes, that's so good because I'm wondering what she's seeing in that glass section of the oven. And also, as Stephanie knows, I'm a huge foodie, and anytime you start reading an excerpt from your book where you have those beautiful food descriptions, my mouth just starts watering. And I love reading. I get hungry every time I read your novel because, as we talked about with the first book, you really do such an amazing job of describing the country and the landscape, the culture and the people, and you do it through the personalities and also through interesting details like the food. So I really love that and appreciate it so much as a foodie. But thank you so much for sharing that excerpt with us. I'm super excited to get this Q&A underway with you. But first, before we get into the first set of questions, I figured we should talk about the giveaways because we all want to know about prizes. So again, if you joined us last time, we had some really great prizes then, and we've got some great prizes now. And it's going to work similar to the first book launch video that we created. So here's how the prize giveaway will work. Each time we reveal a prize, we're going to share a keyword with you. So you might want to grab a pen or a pencil to jot this down. And then after the show, we're going to open up the contest system, and you can actually go find this over at www.stephedwardswrites.com. So we'll also have links to the website on Stephanie's author Facebook page, so you can check there for the rules and how you can enter. And then we will do a random drawing for 5 winners. And the first randomly drawn name, who includes all of the 5 keywords that we share with you during the broadcast, can enter those for a chance to win the grand prize. And then we'll have 4 other prizes for 4 additional winners, and you'll get to see what those prizes are throughout the book launch. So again, don't forget to visit stephedwardswrites.com for the full details, terms, and conditions. So if you're ready, I'm going to give out the first keyword, and that word is mermaid. And one thing before we jump into the first set of questions with Stephanie, I am super excited to show you Stephanie's book trailer for Return to Pomport.
Just the wrong way. Send a signal to my core and ignite my flame. Well, it's been rumbling inside me, but you woke it up. But look out, honey, you better start running, 'cause I'm more than a little high. I'm a volcano. My words are hot love. They're gonna melt right through your soul. I'll burn you like
Ooh, I love that trailer. I love the music behind it. That again was Burn the Treaty, our Nashville-based band, friends of Stephanie, Morgan and Scott, such awesome music, and it just really, adds to the vibe of Stephanie's new novel. So that was so wonderful. Now, right before we jump into the discussion with Stephanie, I'm just going to go ahead and give out a second keyword. Is that cool? We'll do that. All right. So be sure to jot this down. The second keyword for this prize is ghost. So this is another fun prize pack that we're giving away. So make sure to write down ghost. So now you've gotten two keywords. All right. Well, now I am very thrilled to jump into our Q&A with Stephanie. With our first book launch that we did not too long ago, which is pretty incredible. We talked a little bit more about your creative process and some of the things that got you started with your love of writing and storytelling. And I think for people who are new to the Elms series and new to you, it would be great if you could just give a little bit of background about what got you to discover your love of writing.
So when I was in middle school, I had a teacher who was very supportive of me and my writing. And she offered me a position to serve as our school reporter for our hometown newspaper. And so I had a little article that I wrote once a week, and I think I made maybe $200 a month or so for this little job, but I loved it, and it really just drove this desire to be a writer professionally. So I went to school for journalism at UT and worked as a journalist for about 7 years. And I've stayed in communications and marketing jobs ever since. And I've just really been very grateful for the opportunity to get to be creative in my daily job. But when the opportunity and inspiration came to me to write a book, I found out that there's this whole other side to the creative process for me. And I loved what that did for me and how it made me feel to write creatively.
Mm-hmm.
So I've really embraced that, and it gives me something that nothing else ever has in the past. I don't really know exactly how to describe it, but I feel the most like myself when I'm writing a novel. And it just really drives excitement and passion in my life.
So Stephanie, I think what is so cool though is all of that experience that you have had as a journalist and travel journalist really comes through in your books. In the first book, The Haunting on Palm Court, I really felt that when you were setting up the scene of what was going on in the Low Country and Isle of Palms. And then here in the second book, which is so great, you focused in on a different Nelson sister. We actually start out in a totally different place in a different state, and you've taken us there too with setting the scene for what's happening at Brittany's graduation and where she's at in her life at the beginning.
Yeah, I absolutely love to travel, and writing novels has given me another outlet for expressing my passion for traveling. So I'm really happy to have that opportunity to share with readers.
That's awesome. And again, you do such a fantastic job of working with the characters in your novel. And in book 2, what I love is we're reintroduced to all of the people that we rooted for, fell in love with, and some of the ones that we hated from book 1. They're back now here in the Return to Palm Court, but you've also expanded the universe quite a bit. Now, I don't want to give too much away about some of the people / entities we're going to meet in book 2. But I'm curious to know how your process was for growing this story, this universe behind the Nelson sisters and their background, and adding in even more people. I mean, we get to really meet Brittany. We get to meet, the people who are involved in Brittany's life outside of her own immediate family, and another full cast of very interesting people throughout. So I'd love to, know a little bit more about your process and your method for coming up with new characters to add.
Well, as I was writing the story, because I don't plot, I'm terrible at plotting and planning. I just can't do it. I was one of those college students who couldn't write an outline for a paper. So, I mean, I could, but I just never stuck to it. So I'd end up going back and rewriting my outline after I wrote my essay for school.
Uh-huh.
So pretty much the same way as an author. So it's just sort of how things played out. There was a need for a new group of people to come in order for a series of events I'm not going to describe to take place. So because we are in a new location in the story, and there are certain complex events that take place around that, we needed to introduce new people and new entities who would help drive the story and lead it to where it needed to go.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was really surprised with new characters popping up with every page turn. And that's when you thought Parker was the wicked one. There's some really fun and exciting things that happen throughout. And of course, our main lady here, Brittany, is just such a great force. And Brittany really, really stands out. Before the book begins, you let us know about Brittany's character, that you are writing a deaf character in this, and that's something that's really different for me. As just a reader, I've not really encountered that before. A main character who is deaf, and what is the approach to signing and speaking during the book. And I would love to hear more about why you chose to have a deaf character. I know it's very important to you, so I think it would be great to talk about that, the value, importance of having this representation in the book. And let's start from there.
Sure. So I grew up with a deaf aunt and deaf uncle, my mom's brother and sister, being a big part of my life. Also, I had a deaf best friend who I grew up with throughout my childhood. We were pretty much best friends at birth because we were born just a couple weeks apart. So I grew up signing, and I honestly don't remember when I learned to sign. And I've heard that I signed before I spoke with my voice. So sign language has always been very important to my life and to my family. And I wanted to show that just because somebody doesn't have their hearing doesn't mean that they can't live a rich and full life. They can find ways to communicate either, through using sign language and an interpreter, or they sometimes are able to read lips and speak vocally too. And a lot of work goes into that, when they're children and they work with specialists and their families to build up their skills. And I really just thought it was a nice opportunity to showcase a deaf character who lives just a very normal life. She's a young woman. She's engaged. She just graduated from grad school, and she's ready to start her life. And really, that's the main difference. Or there's really no difference, I should say, in what she's experiencing and what other people do, except that she simply doesn't hear what's going on around her.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was just really amazing that you did this, and that Stephanie, you and I have talked a lot about representation, in media and entertainment, and to be able to pick up a novel like this and to have, a character who's deaf as the main character that's driving this whole story, but also to see her as very strong obviously resilient, capable woman, and you don't frame it through a struggle, I think was very unique, because a lot of times when I see other characters represented who might be, in more marginalized communities or might even be minorities in a book, usually their story is framed around a struggle that they're overcoming. But in this sense, Brittany is super accomplished and doing all of these really amazing things in life. And so we get to see her living out all of those great strengths, especially with what she has to do to take care of some of the issues that come up with her family and some of the things from the past that we'll dive into a little bit later. So I think before I get into the next question, I feel like this is a good spot to give out our third keyword. So get ready, because here is the prize that we're giving away. And the third keyword is oyster. Okay. All right, we're going to jump back in to the Q&A. And here's a question for you, Stephanie. Can you give us like what you feel like are the biggest differences between Brittany and Blake? Even though they're sisters and they have a lot in common. I mean, you have a sister, I've got a sister. I know like we share a lot of similarities, but there are also things where we totally butt heads. So I would love to hear how you have created this, relationship between the two of them and what you feel like are the biggest differences between Brittany and Blake.
So Blake is very much like she's very impulsive. She just randomly left Knoxville to go to South Carolina. She didn't think twice about it. Whereas Brittany is more down to earth and even killed. Like she reflects on things. She takes the time to think about things before she just like jumps and moves out of state, which I mean, she does move pretty quickly, but there's a foundation there for her. She's not just going where there are no family members or going without asking other people how it affects them. She definitely talks to her fiance and makes sure that he didn't have summer plans for them before she just takes off and leaves. But Blake was very quick to just go. So I'd say that's one of the main differences. They're both very responsible, very strong women, and they definitely both care about their family a lot. I think in this book, Blake blames Brittany for an event that takes place that I don't think Brittany, if the tables had been turned, I don't think that Brittany would have blamed Blake in that situation. So I think Blake's personality, she's just very quick to do something major in her life or to lay blame on somebody. So that's one of her flaws or weaknesses, but she definitely makes up for it in a lot of the positive ways that she shows her love and support for her family.
That's a really interesting point about kind of the, impulsiveness of Blake versus the more methodical approach that Brittany takes. Because even at the beginning, when someone comes back, you're going to say it, Brittany thinks about it and thinks about what she needs to do to take care of the situation before she feels like she needs to trouble anyone else with it. So it does seem like she holds a lot inside of her, it's like very much a protector. That's how she came across to me and was like, I need to figure out how to take care of this thing that's happening before I let anybody else know.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So that stood out to me because thinking back to the first book, I can totally see Blake rushing a little bit more with, how she would handle this particular situation. So you do have some more. We've talked about the new cast of characters that are coming up in this novel, and beyond just adding more people, again, I'm trying not to give too much away, but there's new entities and spirits that we encounter as well. And I have to say that one group was not what I expected at all coming into it. When you are creating, this universe and writing out the series, and you're thinking about the spirits, are there things that inspire you to write, this new type of entity, these new types of troublemakers, if you will?
Well, the surroundings definitely come into play. So there's an opportunity because of their habitat, we'll call it. There's an opportunity to make them be an entity of a certain persuasion.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely that. And also just having an underlying interest in that sort of entity for many years.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it was just like more new surprises that were popping up as I was turning the page. And I mean, even just to go back a little bit, I love how in book 2, you've started us a few years down the road, right after we've left, book 1, and we get to see Blake and Clint together. We get to meet Macy, their daughter, and it's so fun to be able to kind of have traveled into the future to see where they're at with life, and then to, get this full rounded introduction to Brittany, because we caught glimpses of her in the past. So it's so wonderful to see her, just really take over this novel. But also it kind of dives us deeper into the Nelson family, the gifts that they've been given. And then we get deeper and deeper into the histories behind some of our favorite people and their abilities that we met in book 1. What's fascinating to me as I was reading through it, and you were writing about their family history, you expanded on that even more in book 2. I'm curious, how far back have you thought about their family, when all of the, these gifts started to present themselves? I mean, even the finding of certain books that they needed to come across in order to understand, their family's gifts are there. I was just curious, you've got an entire history, a different universe, so many more family members that you've written about. And I'm just want to know, how'd you do that?
It's just what came to me, honestly. But I will say in the 3rd book in the series, we'll go back even further, and you will catch glimpses of people who've been mentioned, but they're not in either of the other 2 stories. So, yeah.
Ooh, okay. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the 3rd book that's coming up soon. So before we do that, let's give out a 4th keyword. All right. And the 4th keyword for this giveaway is shell. Should be easy to remember, guys. Shell. Got it? Okay. All right, Steph. So you teased up the next book in the series, and that you're working on it right now, and we can expect to see it before the year is over. Is that all right?
I'm aiming for fall 2021.
Oh my gosh. That's right around the corner. This is so exciting. And you teased up that you're taking us way back in time. So what are we going to see with the Nelson sisters family history, all the matriarchs of the family?
So the 3rd book will be from the perspective of Elena. She's the middle sister in the Nelson family, so Blake and Brittany's sister. And I'm not going to give away everything, but you will see a lot of glimpses into the past and focusing on Granny Mason and Nancy when they were younger.
Ooh. You know how I know there's a Nancy fan club out there. So we're all super excited to see like young Nancy. I can only imagine how feisty she was then, knowing how feisty she was in book 1, the way we're seeing her in book 2, which is a little bit, of a different light, and which is exciting. So yeah, I'm curious about book 3 and how we see Nancy in there. That's so exciting. And it's just so amazing to me, and I know to everybody that is watching, what you have accomplished as a writer and an author with creating and sharing this series with all of us. It really wasn't that long ago when book 1 came out. And so it is just absolutely exciting that we're here talking about book 2. And then we've got book 3 coming up just in a few months. So after that, book 3 comes out, does that wrap up the story of the Nelson sisters and their family, or you have something else up your sleeve? I know you do.
Well, I think I'm going to try my hand at writing about East Tennessee, since that's where I live and have lived my entire life. I have a story in mind that I'm wanting to write. I'm not really ready to talk about it too much because I haven't sat down to write anything yet.
Mhm.
But I'm not saying I'll never return to Palm Court.
Oh.
There's always the opportunity to go back and focus more. I've thought about writing a story from Parker's perspective and showing maybe he's not as bad of a guy as we all thought, or maybe
I don't know about that.
he probably really is pretty terrible. I mean, it's Parker. He's the worst.
He's a pretty awful guy. And again, you do too good of a job at writing like a really nasty person. Because you're like the nicest person I know, but you're able to write like one of the most evil people I've ever read.
This is my therapy.
Just get it all out. It's all Parker. So guys, don't mess with Stephanie or Parker will come out. Well, that's so exciting to hear that you've got stories, in your mind about home in East Tennessee. And I mean, it's so fun for me to read your books, and to see you write about Knoxville, places that I'm familiar with. And it's just, it's like nostalgic for me too, to read that. So I really enjoy it. So I know when we had our first book launch party, we talked about if the book gets made into a TV show or movie, who would play the characters. So now you've got like a bunch of new characters in this one. So is there anyone in this, or even who would play Brittany, if you could choose an actress to star as one of your characters in the television show or blockbuster movie of Return to Palm Court?
If I had to pick one actress to play Brittany, it would be Mackenzie Rosman. You probably know her more as Ruthie from Seventh Heaven. She was a little kid then, but she would be the right age now. So that makes me feel really old.
Oh my goodness, I forgot about that show. That was so good, but I can totally see that.
She has the right look, and at least as a kid, like her personality and just the way she carried herself, I think would fit well. Of course, I've not seen her in anything as an adult, but I looked her up because I was like trying to think of actresses with dark hair, and I thought, oh yeah, she would be perfect.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. You got to keep that like list in mind. So when it gets adapted for the screen, you know who to call, know who to cast for it. And let's see. I'm trying to think of any other. I just don't want to give away too much here. Is there anything else that you want to share with us about this novel? Maybe, was it more challenging to write than the first one because you were now expanding on the stories behind, these sisters and their families and bringing in new characters? Or in a sense, did it kind of flow a little bit easier to you because you had already set up so much of this backstory with The Haunting?
It was really easy to write this book. I hate to say it that way, but it was so much easier. And when I say it was easy to write, just in comparison to the first book, I felt like I had so many things in place already that I was just building upon what I'd already set down, and had such a great foundation that I didn't have to start from scratch.
True. Okay. That makes sense. And did being in lockdown during COVID have any impact on what you were writing?
I don't know if it had impact on the content, but it definitely gave me more time to write. So there's that.
That's great. The silver lining in all of this, right?
For sure.
Amazing. And if there's anything that you want to leave us with that, you learned from this process, because I'm sure we have a lot of people watching too who are also interested in writing, or publishing something for the first time as well. Like now this is book 2 for you. So if there's any words of wisdom that you'd want to impart on people who are also excited about, a journey into being an author, I think they would love to hear it from you.
Just write. And I know that's easier said than done, but don't limit yourself. If a thought comes to mind, just start writing. If that means taking a notepad to the park and sitting down and writing just your thoughts for the day, maybe something will spark some inspiration, or maybe you'll be people watching and you'll see somebody interesting who could become a character in your book.
I love that. That is really wonderful advice. So before we wrap up, I figure this is a good time for us to give out our 5th and final keyword. So you guys get ready. Here's the prize. And the 5th and final keyword is fire. And it's fire because you're going to see fire. Fire's on the cover of the book. You'll read about fire throughout. The fire plays quite an important role. So 5th word is fire. So because of I figure I'll go ahead and recap all of the words for you just in case. So we have given out these words: mermaid, ghost, oyster, shell, and fire. And don't forget, you can go to Stephanie's website, stephedwardswrites.com, after this broadcast and enter the contest from there. And we will draw 5 lucky winners. So good luck to everybody. And I just want to say thank you to all of you who have joined us and are here celebrating Stephanie's book launch. It's still so amazing to me, and I'm so proud to be your friend and to see you publishing book 2 in this series. It was just like yesterday when we were talking about book 1, and now here we are with the return. And then we've got your 3rd book coming up later this year. So lots to look forward to.
Thank you for everything you do to support my books.
Yay! I'm so proud of you. We love this book. We love learning about the Nelson sisters. I can't wait to learn more about Elena in book 3. I can't wait to see how she's so different from Brittany and Blake. And I'm also very excited to keep going back in time to get to some of the origin stories behind, these women and their really fascinating powers and their abilities. So we're so excited to see that. We're so happy about book 2 being out, and we just can't wait to continue to be a part of this really cool journey with you. So thank you to everybody, and we hope you have a great night.